Hello and welcome to the How to Exit podcast. Today I'm here with Eric Gall. He is the founder of Edison Business Advisors. He's out of Florida and I'm excited to learn from him today. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thanks, Ron. Pleasure to be here.
I always start off with everybody with the origin story. My running joke is you were born and then you ended up on a show about mergers and acquisitions. Can you fill out the gap in between?
Yeah, it didn't happen that quick. I got my start back in the late 90s at Ford Motor Company, working in the business office where I did a lot of post merger integration work with Jaguar, Land Rover, Volvo, Mazda, Ford. And while I was there, I became involved just kind of haphazardly in selling off some small internet based businesses that they purchased before the internet bubble, as well as getting involved in some joint ventures that we did in the licensing space. So as our office got involved in that, it kind of started the bug for me. And then in the mid 2000s, with a few friends of mine, we decided we would go off and we would try to pull some money together, create a little small private equity group, and purchase some businesses on our own. So we did that. We purchased 7 businesses in automotive services, transportation and logistics, and software. And we operated those for a while, and the Great Recession hit. And many of them bailed on me and went back into the corporate world. Jobs are a much safer environment than being an entrepreneur. I kind of inherited the management of everything and had to make some decisions. I could hire some people to run some businesses, but I couldn't run them all myself because I didn't have a team anymore. And with the money tightening up and everything else going on, the cost of materials, like in the automotive service businesses, the cost of oil shot through the roof, the cost of tires, which are made, our oil byproduct, shot through the roof. So the margins just minimized. The decision was made that I needed to start selling these businesses off. So we packaged them up and we started selling them off. And I really enjoyed that process of not just selling them off, but even buying them at the time in the early 2000s. So as I sold those off, my thoughts were, okay, I could go back into corporate America, or I could leverage some of the skills and knowledge that I gained in buying and selling businesses and help other people do it. So we made that decision in 2009. I got started down here. We stayed in Florida. Started with a gentleman out of Orlando, Florida, who was probably about a 25-year veteran at the time in the industry. He's still going at it in his mid 70s. And he was more Main Street because I felt I should probably get my feet wet selling the smaller businesses first.
Are you guys working with the outside buyers like GSOs, MSOs, and that type of stuff?
Yeah, predominantly in the medical and dental space, we're working with dental service organizations, medical service organizations, folks that are rolling up those practices. A lot has changed in the world over the past 20 years. When I was young and hanging out with the young dentists, their mission was to collect enough money to purchase their own practice. The reality is today, these young dentists, a couple things have happened. One is because of their school debt, it's taken them a lot longer to collect that money to purchase that initial practice. And I think the entrepreneurial spirit that was there I'm pushing 60, not quite there yet. But in my day, there was a strong entrepreneurial spirit among me and my classmates. That I saw kind of disappear in the kids that graduated high school in the 90s and early 2000s. And I think it's starting to come back with the younger set now, fortunately. But there's a gap in age groups where I just want to work for somebody.
What is the ballpark? I wonder what that is. That's a good fascination question. What is the ballpark? I guess you evaluate this on a regular basis. You're selling dental offices. What is the opportunity cost to set up a dental office instead of buying one? Like, what does all the equipment per station normally run?
Wow, I mean, I haven't gotten involved in setting one up, so I can't really tell you. But, when you're talking about, well, honestly, I was peripherally involved. I sold a dental office practice. He had 6 offices. His EBITDA was probably around the $900,000 range. And in one of those offices, part of the purchase agreement called for the seller to expand his office by doubling it into the space that was next door. He had a small, I think it was like 1,200 square foot office, and he converted that into a 2,400 square foot office. And in the contract, he was going to be reimbursed for that. And if I recall, it was probably about $250,000 of cost for equipment and interior build out of that 1,200 square feet. So I think he had 4 operatories that he added in that space. So if you look at it from that perspective, because there's some efficiency there, you're probably talking somewhere around $600,000 to $800,000 per operatory.
These kids come out of college. I call them kids. Young adults come out of college and they hear about acquisition entrepreneurship, ETA, and stuff. And most of them want to run to, well, I want to own a software company. I want to own video games, or I want to do eBay store. I'm dating myself, Amazon stores, right? I'm starting to find some cool people out there that are buying these manufacturing companies, buying these lawn service companies, and buying these other things. And it's usually the sweet spot. I think these are guys that, most of the guys I've seen doing that, they bought 1 or 2 businesses and they respect the fact that these are established businesses with cash flow. They tend to be in their late 30s, early 40s is the guys I see that are buying these up. Is that true with what you're seeing, buying the manufacturing plants and the other stuff you're selling?
It's a broad spectrum, but yeah, I would say 40 and up is the vast majority of buyers. 50 is probably the median age of buyers that I work with. Going back to your earlier question on build out your own or purchase one, when you purchase a dental practice, you're purchasing a set of clients and an income stream already. So if you just look at that build out cost that we just talked about, if you were to purchase, it just makes sense because you're making money from day one.
You're almost looking for not somebody who's so much entrepreneur, because those guys want to solve problems in the world. You're looking for operators, guys who maybe they've done it for a long time. They know how it should be done. They don't think their last boss was doing it right, and they don't want a new boss. They want to go out on their own, but they're not wanting to do it from scratch. An operator to me is a totally different species than an entrepreneur. You have to have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, but it's like I am truly 100% entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is when something is running well and you're doing the same thing day in and day out, my eyes glaze over and I got to have somebody else in there helping me do it, because I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. I'll do it once or twice, but after I have to do it 3 or 4 times, I'm hiring assistants and team members, and I want to go solve a new problem. And that's your typical entrepreneur. They're looking for the next fire to put out.
I've already started assembling a list of sellers or prospective sellers that I've spoken to in the past who've said, yeah, I'd really like to sell to my kids, but I'm thinking that the way to go is a third party sale. The reason is because my kids don't have the money and I don't want to stick around and run the day to day and be here 60 hours a week while they learn the business. But I can think of one right off the top of my head. He's a pool contractor. He does very high end pools, and he's got 4 kids in the business. And I asked him, why don't you sell to your kids? And he said, well, they're still too young, a little bit too green to do so. Maybe 10 years down the road, they could run this business themselves. But at 26 to 20, they're not ready.